Now we're going to begin building our game. But before we actually program our game, before we build it, let's do some game design. Game design is basically just taking a piece of paper and figuring out what you want to do. So why don't we take maybe grab a whiteboard. So here I'm going to put it like this so we can see how the game looks like. So obviously there's going to be the header, like a whack-a-mole, some kind of a start. But the game inside, well, it probably should be some kind of a grid, right? Maybe 3 by 3. And these would be boxes where a mole could come up. And a mole could come up here, right? Could show up in one of these boxes. Maybe a mole will show up here. And we'll have to click it, with a mouse when the mole is showing, and that will give us some points. So what will we need to do? So we'll have to do something like, we'll have to show the mole. So the mole will have to come up. We'll have to figure out where we're going to show the mole, some kind of a randomly, right? Show the mole, maybe randomly. We obviously don't want to be popping up in the same location. After some time, we want to hide them all. What else? Well, we probably want to track points. So maybe we want to say something like hits, 5, misses, 1, something like that. So if we want to actually track these points, we're going to have some kind of a way of smacking them all. So click them all, right? And we're going to have to register a hit, and we'll have to remember when it was missed. So if I click here, well, there is no mole, so that should be a miss. Again, there's many different variations of this game. Maybe you don't get a miss, maybe you only get a point when you hit a mole. When you don't hit it, you don't get any points. It doesn't matter. It's our game. We can make it whatever we want. So we're going to start with something simple. There's going to be misses, and there's going to be hits. What else could there be? Well, that looks to me like a good start. So we're going to keep this as our list of things to do, and we'll slowly get through this. Now, it's going to be very hard to do everything at once. So what we're going to do is sorry, alarm is ringing. So what we're going to do is, why don't we start just creating one mole box, maybe. How about we do, let's just maybe, how about this green color? That's nice. We do one mole box. Okay, and why don't we do show the mole first? We're not going to do randomly because we're going to have just one box. We're going to show the mole. Maybe we'll do clicking of the mole. Maybe we'll register hits. Maybe we'll register misses. And maybe we'll display the points. So basically track the points. And then of course we'll have to hide the mole. So we'll start with one and then we'll expand further. Okay, let's get to it. So I would think that this 3 by 3 grid, that mole box, should be below start. You click start and something should appear here where the game would be. Now, how would we do that? Well, after the start div and before the restart div, why don't we enter another div? We'll call it, and we'll give it ID equals mole. And we close the div. And whenever I start by adding some new HTML, I always put something like mole here. And the reason why is because this new div will not have any kind of a look and feel. It will not have a box. It will not be green. It will be just empty. So if you save this and we come back and refresh this, as you'll see, it's just mole. So if I didn't have the text here, I wouldn't see anything. So I wouldn't know if I got it right. So go ahead, add this div to your HTML and make sure that it's appearing like this. and come back when you're ready. So let's make our mall div box to look like a square, you know, like a place from something a mall could pop up from. So why don't we go to our CSS file, because that's obviously how we style the HTML. And well, here is a style for the start button. And it's centered, it has a background, green background, so it's a good start. So why don't we copy this, and so right click, copy, come here, right click, paste, and I'm going to change this instead of start to say mall. And I'm going to save that. And now the mall box should look exactly like the start button. So let me come back here, refresh. Okay, it looks exactly like this, like the start button. Well, we obviously want it to be looking a little bit differently, so why don't we make some changes? First of all, we don't want, I don't think we want the round corners. So what can we do? We can remove round corners. And again, like you're looking at this border radius, what does that mean? Well, that's what makes round corners. So I can remove that, come back here, refresh, and now I don't have the round corners. I also don't want it to be so big because we're going to want 3 side by side. So why don't we change the width a little bit? Where's the width here? Oh, the width actually is not done the same way. So we have to actually add a width parameter. So I'm going to go here, width, and I don't know, why don't we say 50 pixels? 50 px for pixels, and I put semicolon. Let me save, come back here, F5 to refresh, and I have a box. Well, maybe I want it a little bit bigger. Why don't we try 100? Save, Control S, refresh F5, and that's looking better. I also want it to look like a square rather than rectangle. So why don't we add a height? And again, I'll start typing. And see how I'm starting to type. And as I type H, it shows me everything that's available that starts with H or has an H in it. If I put HE, oh, it says, oh, okay, you probably want height, because there are no other parameters which have HE in them. So it actually highlights. So actually, all I have to do is press the Tab key, and it's going to finish it. So these are little neat tricks that we as developers use to appear like we're just crazy fast typers. So I say height, semicolon, or sorry, colon, 100 pixels, semicolon to end, Control S, refresh, and that's looking much better. But maybe we don't want this mall box to appear until you click Start. As you click Start, we have this thing that appears, right? So we know actually how to hide this and make it appear. And if I refresh, Start makes this appear. So why don't we make the mall box work the same as this? Well, first of all, this is hidden at Start, and it's done by the CSS. Let's find this. It was called Restart. Here we go. Restart. That's the box. And as you can remember, you might remember, we have this hidden that was added. So why don't I right-click, copy, and paste it here. And so what we'll see is, if I come back here, refresh, now it's hidden. Oops, it's not showing up, but that's okay. So why don't you go ahead and do these changes now, and I will take a screenshot and highlight, show what we must do. So make sure you add this with height, visibility, and this change the, so you copied the, you have to copy the start button HTML to this, and then change these things. I also removed something, I forget what, but do this first, and I'll come back and show you what was also removed. Come back when you're finished. Okay, so we also remove this border radius. Okay, so in your mall, remove the border radius. And this is how it would look like. The border radius here has been removed and these were added. And well, if you actually refresh, you can't see it. So you can always remove this temporarily, save, refresh to make sure things are looking okay, and then come back here and add it with, you can put Control Z to reverse what you wrote. Now let's make this appear, because now it's disappeared. Let's make it appear when I click on Start. So let's go back to our code. And well, when we click the Start button, then this function gets called. And that's defined, the function is defined here. And as you can remember, we had this x here, and we said if x is 0, that means if it's been clicked the first time, let's do a bunch of things. One of the things is, for this restart button, set its visibility to visible. That basically makes it makes that button visible. So let's do the same thing for the mole. And the way I'm going to do that is, again, I'm going to copy this, right click, make sure you get everything, including the semicolon, and I'll click here and I'll say right click, paste. And what I want to do is I want to change this ID restart, right, to mole. So I right click, copy, come back here, paste, mole. And if I save, I come back here and refresh, when I click start, it should appear. And voila, here we go. So I want you to do this now. And what you need to do is add this line. So go ahead and do that now. Let's now make the mole clickable. So when I click, we'll register some kind of a hit, right? So how do we do that? Well, we know how to put a click event on the start button because we've done that before. So we can take a look how this was done and basically make the same thing. So let's go to the code. So the way we made the start button to be clickable is, again, we found the element by ID. So we get a reference, we call it reference. So basically when you do this, you now have the element and you can do things to it. And here we add a click, we add an event listener. So we're saying when this area, this button gets clicked, call this function we call onClick. And same thing for restart. So we can do the same thing. And the way I do that is, again, I would copy this, right click, copy, right click, and paste. And of course, I'll have to change a bunch of things. First of all, we're trying to find the element mole. So I would change this to mole. Okay, so now we're setting an event, a click event on the mole box. And we need to change the, the function because we don't want the page to reload. If we left it like this, I can show you. I can save, refresh. If I click start, clicking on the mole or here will do the same thing. So if I click mole, I get a refresh. And the reason why is because for both of these, we're calling the same function, and that function is here, and it says basically reload the application. So we don't want that. So we want to change this. So why don't we say mole clicked? Okay, and that we create the function like this. But you know what? Actually, I don't like this because here we said restart on click, and here we said clicked. When we're writing our code, we should try to be consistent as much as possible. So if we have on click, why don't we say on click? On click. Okay, so go ahead and do that now. This is the line that you have to add. Come back when you're done. Next, we want to do is we need to actually create this function. So I can go and say here, new line, and I'll say function. So I'm saying I'm creating a function, I'm creating a piece of code, and it's supposed to be called mole on click. And as you can see, Visual Studio is very nice. It highlights this and it highlights this for me. So now I know, okay, I didn't make a mistake. Because if I, for example, if I said something on click and I forgot the I, well, it's not highlighting this, and I know I made a mistake. And a mistake like this, that will create bugs, and sometimes they're hard to find. So now I know I got it right. And then I put opening and closing a bracket. That's how a function is defined. Then I put opening bracelet, and I'll close the bracelet. Now notice how for me this bracket appeared on a new line, and you had it, if you probably do it, you probably will have it like this. Well, you can change the settings of your Visual Studio so that your code always looks like this. And this is a little bit easier to read. So I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But for now, whoops, what did I do? Oops, I messed up here. Open, close, here we go. For now, just create a function like that. And even if it's like this, that's okay. And come back. So just write this function. Okay, so why don't we change your settings so that you always have this bracket here? So for this, what you need to do is you need to go to Tools and just hold off. I'll show you how to do it and you can do it yourself. Tools and then Options, okay, the very bottom one. And when you do that, you get this big list of all the different things you can configure. And what you first want to do is find a section called Text Editor, because we want to change how this text editor is working. Okay, you want to expand that, and now you have a bunch of settings, and there are different settings for different languages. You want to find JavaScript/TypeScript because we are writing JavaScript. You want to expand that. Then you want to find formatting because we want to change how it's format. Expand that. Then you want to go to new lines, and when you get this, you want to have both of these clicked. That means, and this will do what you want. So go ahead and do that. Again, well, this is Tools, Options, and then find it and make that change. Come back when you're done. If you make that change, then what you will see is when you write the function and you you enter the closing bracket, it will automatically format like this. And again, this is a preference. Some people prefer to have it here on this line. Some people prefer to have it here. But for the purpose of what we're doing here, keep it consistent, keep it what I'm doing. It'll be a lot easier for you to spot problems. One more thing we want to do is when you click the start button still is here. And you know what? It's not the best interface, right? I mean, once you click the start button, it should really disappear. So why don't we do that? So here is, we do a bunch of things when the start button is clicked. So why don't we hide it? And again, the way to do that is, well, we'll set its visibility to hidden. So I'm going to copy this. Again, ensure that you're copying everything. Don't miss one word. Control V. And I'm going to say, what's the start? Aha, this is the start button. It has an ID of start. So I'm going to double click, copy that, and I'm going to put it here. So now I'm going to get this start button and I'm going to set its visibility to hidden. I'm going to save, refresh 5, and now this should hide when I click it. And indeed, it is hidden. So go ahead and add this line to your code and come back when you're done. So now that we have the mole box, let's go back into our game design and think about what we may want to do. Well, we want to show the mole. So we want to show the mole in this box. So why don't we do that part, show the mole? Obviously right now it's just kind of hard-coded. It's showing there all the time, but the mole should pop up sort of randomly, you know, like every few seconds or something like that. So why don't we first have the mole missing, the word mole, and then we'll add it there after some time. And the way we can do that is, well, you actually know how to make that happen. We've done that with clicks per second. Now let me open that file again. So let me go to the file explorer, and here I'm making Whack-A-Mole, but if I go back, I can actually open the old clicks per second HTML, and I can say open with Visual Studio, and again, we can use our old code, and as you can remember, we use this thing called set timeout, and after 5 seconds, so when you clicked start, after 5 seconds of clicking, we told the system to call this function time is up, and here we would calculate the clicks per second and we'll display them. So we can do the same thing. Okay, so what we can do is I can grab this code, okay, right click, copy, and I can use it to show the mole after some time when the game starts. So let me go back to here. So where does the game start? Well, the game starts here. So we do a bunch of things. So why don't we do this? Actually, no, I don't need this var timer, so I'm just going to remove it. So I'm going to say set timeout, and after say maybe 1000 milliseconds, that means 1 second. I can put here comment. Actually, I'm going to do that right now. This is after 1 second. We're going to call some function. Well, we don't have the function time is up. So what do you want to call it? Maybe we want to call it what? Show mole. Sounds good to me. So why don't we create this function? I'm going to come here and say function. Again, see how it comes up here? So I can just hit tab, function, show mole. It highlighted for me, so I know I got it right. Open and close bracket. Open curly braces, and actually created the empty braces right away. I hit enter, and I have a function that is here. Now, we want, when this function gets called, we want to put the mole into this box. So, well, first we want to make sure that the word mole does not appear. So I'm going to get rid of this here. And I want to put the word mole when we want to show up the mole. And as you can remember, if I go back to our CPS, we were putting number of clicks, right? So we know how to do that. And that is using this function called inner text. So why don't I copy this? And I go back here and I go to show mole, paste, whoops, wrong click, paste, okay? And what I want to do is I want to get the element called mole, and I want to set its inner text to, well, how about mole? And I get rid of that. Save this, and let me go back and refresh. So now the start button is here, and if I click it, I got the mole showing up after a second. Let me try it again. 1000, and there we go. Okay, so we've got the mole showing up. So go ahead and do that now, and I'll show you the things you need to do. And again, it's going to be a little bit of typing for you this time, but take your time and type out everything. So you want to remove the word mole from here. Then in the on click, you want to set the timeout to run the function show mole after 1000 milliseconds. And here is our function. And here is, well, here's our code. So go ahead and do that now. Come back when you're ready. Once you do that, make sure you test it, make sure it works. And again, if something doesn't go right, just check every character by character, because any small difference, if you just, for example, forget the letter S, it will just, nothing will work. So just be careful. Okay. Couple of other things I noticed that we could clean up. In the on-click, okay, so let me just go back. So this is the start button, right? This is the on-click for the start button. If I click start, this would run. So in the clicks per second game, you could keep clicking on this button. And therefore, we needed to do some things only for the first time. That's why we had this if x is 0. Well, we now hide the start button. And when the start button is hidden, it cannot be clicked again. So we can actually remove this. Okay, so we can remove that. So go ahead and remove this and that. So it'll be like this. Okay, go ahead and remove this and come back. Now, as you can see, it's kind of a weirdly formatted, right? This is like to the right, this is to the left. And the reason why is because this used to be in this if thing. Well, you can make it all be nicely formatted if you only go format it, if you only go to this closing bracket, remove it, and add it again. Then the editor will format everything inside it nicely. So go ahead and do that. Remove and then add, and it should be nicely formatted. This is how your code should look like. Oops, did I just put a wrong? I put a wrong bracket. Oh, there you go. So go ahead and do that. Okay, so we've got our start showing them all, the mole box. After a second, we got them all showing up. But we need to be able, like when you click on them all, we need to, do something. And we created already a function that's going to be called when you click them all. Click them all. This is the function that gets clicked. So what do we want to do? Well, we probably want to say something like, how many hits and how many misses you have. In the clicks per second game, if I go back to that, we were doing this on every click. On every click, so this every time the button was clicked, we added one click to the variable x. So the x remembered how many clicks we got, and then we display this message: number of clicks is such and such. Well, why don't we do the same thing? So I'll go to my Whac-A-Mole, and we have this timer element here, and we're not using it for anything. So maybe this is where we're going to show the message. So why don't I go here in the on click, and I will write document. See how I write document? I write doc, and already document is highlighted. So all I have to do is press tab, and it's there. If I hit dot, again, these are all the possible things I can do with a document. A document basically is all of this. So if I say document, it gives me access to everything here. But again, if I want just one element, I want the div timer. So I say document dot get element by ID, open bracket, and then I give the ID of the element. And I know that element is called timer. And then I say, now that I have a reference to this HTML element, well, if I put dot, it tells me all the things that I can do to it. And one of the things I can do to it is inner text. So inner, if I type in, I see inner text. And this allows me to set a text which is inside the div element. So I can just hit tab, and it's going to be here. And I can say equals, and I'm going to say hits and plus x. Okay, x is this the counter. This is not done right. We have to move this code, but let's not worry about that. Hits plus x. Now, if you see this plus here, we talked about it before. It's kind of weird because we're not adding two numbers together. So in this case, when the program or the browser sees basically text with a plus, it knows, aha, you want to put this text together with whatever's inside x. So if inside of the x will be 1, it's going to say hit : 1. In fact, maybe I want to put a space here so it's nice like this. and I don't want to forget a semicolon. So let me refresh, come back. Sorry, I meant let me save, Control S. Now let me refresh here and click Start. And now if I click on the mole, I should see a message there up there that says hits and hits 1. And if I keep clicking, well, it never changes. And the reason why is because we're not updating the value of X. So that's the value here. We're gonna have to fix that. But for now, just go ahead and add this into the mole onClick function and come back when you're ready. So we need to, every time the mole is clicked, we need to increase the number of hits or number of misses. So, well, and since we're storing the number of clicks in its X, why don't we stick with it for now? So really what we need to say is X, so make X is equal to, this is not an equal to, it means put into. So put into X whatever is on the right side, and it's X plus 1. And again, I'm going to remove this because unfortunately this is the way you write it. So we're saying take whatever value of X you have. So at first it's 0, add 1 to it, and then store it back in the same variable. And we talked about it when we're doing the clicks per second game. And we can, we can remove this here completely. So go ahead and do that. What you need to do is you need to remove this and add this. And I'll take a screenshot for you. So we can see you must remove this and add this here and come back when you're ready. So this is what we did. I always like to take out empty spaces. And let me save this and let's test it. I'm going to refresh. And now when I click, it should say hits 1. And if I click again, it should say hits 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it works. It works, but it doesn't work perfectly. And the reason why is because, as you can see, when I click start and I start clicking, it's telling me that I actually got 7 hits. And we can actually, what we can do is we can make it so that the mole takes about 5 seconds to show up. So for the first 5 seconds when we start the game, there is no mole. So let me save here, refresh, start. As you can see, there is no mole here. But if I click, it's telling me that I hit. Okay, but frankly, I should have had 3 misses rather than 3 hits. So what we need to do is we need to only increase the number of hits when a mole is there. Now, how do we know when a mole is there? Well, we can do that. Let's see. This is the kind of stuff, this is the way you got to think when you're doing programming. Well, how do I know the mole is there? Well, I show the mole here. Could I create a variable maybe that remembers if a mole is visible? What if I say something like is mole visible equals true? Okay, so when I show up the mole, I'm going to create a variable is mole visible, and I'm going to set it to true, which means yes, it is visible. And when I do that, if I want to have a variable, I have to first declare that variable. So I have to go back here, very, very top, and I have to say var, which means variable, create a variable called is mole visible. Okay, and as you can see, Visual Studio highlights this and it highlights this. Remember something, that JavaScript is case sensitive. What that means is visible with a big V is not the same as visible with a small v. So this is not going to work. And as you can see, it's not highlighting this visible because it's different. So be very careful. That's why we always use small letters. That way, less chance of making a mistake. Because we could call this variable something like this, is mole visible. And it looks very nice. I mean, it's very readable, but it's very easy to make a mistake. So instead, we just go like this, is underscore mole underscore visible. And when the game starts, is the mole visible? It isn't. So we're going to give it a value of false. So this is what we created a variable called a Boolean, which means two values. And the values are yes or no. No is represented by false, yes is by true. So this variable will have false or true. So when we first start the game, the variable is going to say no, the mole is not visible. But when we show up the mole, we're going to set it to true, saying yes, the mole is visible. Now what can we do with this? Well, when the mole is clicked and this function gets called, we add to the number of hits represented by this variable called x. It's not a very good name. We're going to change it later, but for now we can live with it. Well, we should only do that if the mole is visible. If the mole is visible. So, if you remember, we have something called if. If I put if, and then inside the brackets, I put what we called a test condition. So we say if is mole, and see how it's showing up already here? It knows that I have this variable, so all I have to do is press tab. Whoops. Okay, here it is, okay? Is mole visible the same as true? And if you remember last time, the double equals means is this the same as this? So we're saying if the variable is mole visible has a value of true, then do something. And the way we specify what it must do is we create this open and close brackets, and whatever we put inside there will be run if the mole is visible, if it's true. So let me take this, I'm going to highlight this, and I'm going to drag it. I'm just going to move it here. And I'm going to say, if the mole is visible, then increase the hits. If the mole is not visible, then don't. So why don't I run this and let's see what happens. So it takes 5 seconds for the mole to start. And when I click it, it should not register hits. But of course it does, because I forgot to save the file. See how the little star is? So save the file, come back here, refresh, and now start. If I click, I should see hit 0, okay? Why is it saying, now I got it. So let me refresh again, start, and if I'm clicking, it's saying hit 0. So it's displaying this hits, but it's not increasing it. If I click now, I'm getting the hits. Okay, so we got it working. So why don't you go ahead and implement this now? And again, I'm going to take a screenshot of this and I'll show you what you must do. So you will have to create this variable is more visible. Then you'll have to set it to true when we show them all. And then you'll have to create this if, make sure double arrows, double equal signs, and increase the hits only when the mole is visible. Come back when you're ready. Okay, so we got this working. Why don't we debug it? And we debug, we can see how the program runs. It helps us to understand what's going on. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to make it full screen. And I'm going to press F12 to open Developer Tools. Okay, and this gives us access to, well, a lot of stuff. So first of all, if you click on the Sources tab, you will see all the files that, well, that the browser has loaded, the HTML and the CSS. If you click on the HTML, I can make this, you know what, maybe a little bit smaller. And maybe refresh. Let's refresh here. If I click here, then I have access to my JavaScript. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a breakpoint. So I come here and I click this red thing here. And what that means is when this program runs, whenever it tries to run this line, it will stop and I can see what's going on. So let me click start, okay? And now let me click the mole box. When I click the mole box, this function should get called and I should get stopped on this line. Let me refresh again and let's start. So start and click, and it's telling me, aha, you're on this line, and it's highlighting it saying, I want to do the if. So I can actually move my mouse and actually see what's the value inside is more visible. Well, the value inside is false, and we're comparing it to true. So we're saying, is false the same as true? And we can find out by actually highlighting very carefully just this part. And you can see if I move my mouse, it's saying no, false. You know, is more visible, is not, does not have the value of true. So the whole thing is false. So if it's false, you can click this arrow right here, or you can hit F10. It's easier to hit F10, okay? If you go there, the program is going to go to the next line. So is it going to go here? Where is it going to go? Let's try it. If I click, it skipped the entire thing, as you can see. So it didn't update number of hits, but it will go to this line and it will display the inner hits, or the hits equals to 0. So if I run this and again step over, it finished that line. Now it's here it's trying to finish the function. We can run this code now. So we can use, I'm going to press this run button, and it ran and it says hits 1. So this is a neat little exercise, and go ahead and do that. Go ahead, put a breakpoint here, refresh this, and study it the way I was studying it. This will give you an idea of, this is a very important skill to have. So go ahead, play with that, and come back when you're ready. Let me make this window smaller. And the last thing we're going to do in this section is, you know what, let's have a better name than an X. Because what is X? X doesn't mean anything. If I'm looking at it, if I go X, well, what does that mean? It's some variable called X. What's inside it? Well, we're using this variable to represent the number of hits. So maybe I can simply put hits. Okay, and I create a variable called hits. And now if I look at it, it's like, okay, hits, the number of times I hit them all. So it makes sense. But of course, I have to remember to change it wherever else it's displayed. So I have to go right click, copy, then I have to go to this X and paste. Then I have to change this X, paste, whoops, I made a mistake here, paste, and this one here, I'm going to remove the X and Control V to paste. Okay, that should be it. And I'm going to press save, Control S, come back here, refresh. And it's very important when you make a change like this, always test your code. So I'm going to click start, and yep, cool, I'm getting no hits until the mole shows up. Yes, and now I'm getting hits. Okay, so go ahead and make that change. And then when you finish, let's go to the next video. The change you need to make is, you want to change the X to hits, change the X here, and here, and here. Do that, test your code, and then we'll see you in the next video.